and welcome to this week's look at action in cinema. And we're doing a sort of double header thing. As I mentioned last week, we are exploring kind of a Sean Connery thread, and we're going 1986's Highlander and 1991's Highlander 2, The Quickening, the sequel. One certainly much better than the other one, even though, you know, both of them made relatively cheaply, all things considered, although the second one was never going to get made unless the success of the first one. The first one was a success. And action-wise, well, it's two completely different sides, really. There was a US unit for the first movie and a UK unit. There is some crossover work, but predominantly a large proportion of the action was down and responsible by the second unit director, who became second unit director quite by accident. If you listen to the podcast, you will hear an interview with Andy Armstrong, who became the second unit director for this picture. So he was an AD and suddenly became second unit director for the New York shoot. So the sequences that involve the initial fight at Madison Square Garden, for instance, in the parking, I want to say multi-story car park. For our American audiences, it's a parking lot. So for that, and also the drive through New York, which we will have a look at as well. And then, there was Vic Magnotta was the American stunt coordinator. And then over here in the UK, we had Peter Diamond. Peter Diamond, check him out on IMDb, massive amounts of credits. You will probably know him as stunt coordinator on Star Wars, for instance, and but of course in this movie not only does he is the UK stunt coordinator, he is also playing the role of Fazil, and is the guy who has the first sword fight with our hero MacLeod, and it looks like this. So Highlander it is. Let's start with that underground parking, and out of nowhere pops Fazil, or Peter Diamond. The stunt coordinator gets to play the role here. He's a very good swordsman from way back when. You can get rid of that coat now, Peter. There we go, he's gone. And he's coordinated this action. It's broadswords, you know, broadswords, very bulky, different type of handling, often with two hands. He's gone for a different approach to some of this. But it's beautifully done. This is all directed by Andy Armstrong of the Armstrong family. Oh, into the windscreen. And then this is definitely not Peter, bless him. I'm sure he'd got a great idea, but that's not him. Ta-da! And then it starts to rain later on as well. Rain, it's not, it's the sprinkler system. Run away, and he runs away. But there's some great stuff going on. Loses the sword. The backflipping. What's the backflipping about? I'm really confused by the backflips. It's not the most effective way of getting away from anybody, but nevertheless. And then it's coming towards curtains. If your head leaves your shoulders, it's over. Just like this. Yeah, that was a dummy. But nonetheless, the training montage. Of course, this is a Scottish shoot. This is him doing it for real. Look, this is actually Christopher Lambert being chucked. And some of the sequences up here, they didn't need the actors. This is Campbell Muirhead, who is doing some doubling work for MacLeod in this sequence, and similarly jumping from the cliff. 30 feet? 30 something feet? Way bosh into the water. Not something you want to do on a regular basis. When we look at it again, it's Richard Bonehill and Campbell Muirhead. Richard Bonehill, a very fine swordsman, fencer, really. He'll crop up again a little later on. And similarly for these type of shots on top of the cliff, so they're all in the fixed position. That's the two of them just standing perfectly still as that's a helicopter, not a drone back then, goes by. Ramirez versus Kurgan. This is towards the end of that short piece that has Sean in it. Again, another good fight, but one done in a number of different ways. He's learned a great deal of choreography, and of course the choreography is from Bob Anderson. Bob Anderson, of course, was the guy who was dressed as Darth Vader for a lot of those other fights in Star Wars. Bang! Gets thrown off here. And it's not a bad fall either. I'm just wondering, I would say, probably just getting out of it. I think it's the same fall, but it's captured by a couple of angles, and I don't think we see this bar here. We then don't see the second time around, but look at his positioning as he comes through. That's Nick Hobbs doing that fall, so that and then of course lands on his face, and the character lands on his face. So that's part of the English shoot. Then in New York, again back to New York. There's the actor, and then Clancy lifts out the stunt arranger over there, Vic Magnotta. Way, bosh, have that. And then the passenger gets quite beside herself. Let's be perfectly honest about it. She's being driven away by this lunatic. And there's an awful lot to consider. But when they come out onto the street, she's hanging on to the bonnet. We don't know whether that's a fella or a girl, so I can't really give any specifics on this. But the car chase itself, there's an awful lot of going on in the car chase. There's an awful lot of action going on, lots of POV shots, lots of cars crashing in the background as well. And one of which we'll have a look at, looks like a real accident. I don't think it is for a moment. Here, bang, there's the collision. So all of those vehicles you can see in the street, they would be all stunt drivers. Then up on the pavement here, that's the director, Russell Mulcahy. He gets a look in. I don't know who this young lady is, a young guy, I don't know who that is. There's an accident behind, look. Another one, and another one. They're just driving into each other. Now, this lovely dismount here, and I believe this is Greg Barnett. I might be wrong, and I apologise if I am wrong, but I've kind of ruled everybody else out, and I think it's Greg Barnett. Look at that, right over the top, super. The end battle, with all these sparks. You remember the video by Queen, was it Prince of the Universe? That was filmed on that set as well. The fight, again, all of this worked out with Bob Anderson. These guys have, they've not just walked into this situation, they've gone through this. There's another vowel going for Burton. They've gone through this over and over again until they are very, very au fait with the weapon. They then throw water into the mix, and a lot of it. There's Peter Brace and Andy Bradford again, slightly better look there. They fall through the skylight, and then they cut to the UK, or the inside of the studio or the location. Peter Brace, Andy Bradford, both on wires, coming down, bang, into the ground there. And again, dark, this blue tinge, and the dollies. The cameras are on dollies. They're moving about from place to place. You've got the reflection on the water on the floor of the lights and the window behind. I think it's really very, very stunning. So all of the long shots are all the stunt doubles, all Andy, all Peter Brace, and then the close-ups of the actors. But they've done it very specifically. And even though there are two, in my instance, Highlander movies, for me.
There can be only one.
He's quite right, That, again, for me, this is the film. And they sell it very well, again, slow motion. Look at that, it looks beautiful.
Now the Quickening, which we've never really got round to, but this is the purpose of the whole thing. And of course they put all these special effects in, and at the time you think, well, that's really clever. All they're doing is hiding the wires. Really is all they're doing. They're creating these extraordinary images, these wonderful pieces of imagery that's going on. And then you find that there's your wires right there, you know, so they're just using that for the purpose. And it's pretty fabulous. It really is pretty fabulous. Still was then, still is now.
So that's the first movie. And on the success of that, we were given Highlander 2. Which, I don't know, there's something just wrong about the whole thing. It's so nice to have Connery and Christopher Lambert back again as the two characters, but I just wish that they'd spent a bit more time on the script and made it a kind of a spectacle like the first one, as opposed to just trying to make it look more exciting by going to Argentina and building a huge set, which they did. Now, stunt coordinator on this picture, American, Frank Orsatti, big American coordinator. Orsatti's a big family name in the States. Check that out on IMDb as well, lots of credits. Unlike the first picture, where you had Andy Bradford doubling for McLeod, Christopher Lambert. In this picture, you've got another big name stuntman, Tommy Huff. He's doing the doubling for there. And also, in this picture, we have our old friend, Rocky Taylor. Now, Rocky Taylor is doubling Sean Connery. Why? Because at the end of Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, there were contractual obligations in Sean's contract. Very similar to what they do now, and the idea was that when Sean made a movie, Rocky was to be his double. And this was the next movie, and he went out to double him. And we'll explore all of that now.
Highlander 2, The Quickening. Really sold this. Look, there's an air ram explosion. You don't leave the air ram in shot. Look, it's very clearly there at the bottom of screen. All of these guys being thrown up into the air using air rams. They don't use a lot of them anymore. These days they tend to use things called ratchets, pulling people through the air. But that's an old school version of a thing called an air ram. Prior to an air ram, it would have been a small trampoline, a trampette. But you don't leave it in shot, surely. I mean, come on, lads, really? Anyway, this is Ramirez's arrival. And Ramirez, Sean Connery, is doubled for the entire picture by Rocky Taylor. All in Argentina. Again, little moments. And you'll see some pictures at the end of Rocky looking very regal, dressed as Sean. Katana arrives in a comet into the Earth's atmosphere and through the floor and into a subway car. Bang! And crashes himself through the roof. Mike Johnston is his double, and Michael Ironside had to do that himself. That last part where he hits the ground. And again, on the behind-the-scenes footage, take a look at it, and you will see what is going on. He's very physical role to do. With all of those, again, extras and stunt folk behind. He's driving the train now at ridiculous speeds. Look at this amazing footage. Jeff Amada there on the left-hand side. I can only manage to spot a couple of individuals. Here's Sandy Berman. She falls through shot. And again, and there, of course, is Frank Orsatti. Now, this will be a gimbal rig hanging on. There was a baby flew through there. Did you see that? There was a dummy. But, of course, it's going to be a vertical set. And, again, there's Frank Orsatti hanging on at that end. And there's going to be a vertical set, and they're hanging on and they drop. Ramirez in the house, and again, this is all Rocky and Tommy Huff. Some of the work is Sean and Christopher Lambert, but all of the long shots, Sean. Greetings, Highlander. This is all Rocky. This is all Tommy Huff. So they just want those long shots. Because it's choreography, and the actors don't need to know that much of it. It's really a very specific part of the whole thing. So they do all the moves. They work it all out. Rocky's, again, used the behind-the-scenes stuff. It's there. Check it out. Blake is this guy, Mr. McGinley. And he's pushed out through a window. It's a dummy. What happened? There was so much stuff going on, and then they resort to a dummy. It doesn't make any sense. A great waste of time. Falling from the ceiling on a wire, Danny Vielsis. Boom, and lands right there. And again, you'll see that on the making of. Check it out. And here is Rocky looking fabulous. On the set, I think this was outside the hotel in Argentina in the gardens when they had some photographs taken. And here is him and Christopher Lambert in costume. And an excellent double. I mean, it's certainly... You remember, of course, all the work that Rocky did with Sean on Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. That's how he got this job in the first place. And if you read his book, he'll tell you more about that. There's some terrific stories in there. This is the outline then. Frank Orsatti, Tommy Huff, Rocky Taylor, Matt Johnson. The girls, again, not really tricky to spot them here. Christy Randell, Roxana Paluzzi, Kurt Bryant was an additional unit coordinator. Sandy Berman, Tom Duter, Andy Gill, Jeff Amada, Eddie Matthews, Carl Milnack, Arturo Knoll, Jerry Spicer, Mike Stone, and Steve Walter. In that first pass there, I don't know how many more to go. Oh, of course, and Danny Vaiselis, of course, who we talked about earlier. So I thought, being a big fan of the first movie, I really enjoyed it, and I thought it would be terrific if they could really up the game. And I think they've upped the game, and they've tried to up the game, and they've gone too far. Sometimes you try too hard and you overdo it, you overcook it, and that's possibly what happened here. Having said that, from an action point of view, I'm thrilled that it had some nice moments in it, but of course it's still not really like the first picture. But great fun, great to explore it again, and I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you.
So there we go. That is it. Highlander 1 and Highlander 2, The Quickening. That's a little look at both of those. And that is it for this series. We're going to take a break. We'll be back in later on the year, August, September time, I think is the plan. I've got a bit more to do on the book, as you can imagine, which is due out in October. So fingers crossed for that, and hopefully you'll be able to get your copies from appropriate locations and good bookshops and any bookshops, frankly, I don't care. Mostly online, I would have thought. But yes, so that's going to happen. So I've got to get all of that sorted out. So that'll be around the October time. We'll be back in. I said September. There will be a video in August because I have a special interview with Kimberly Shannon Murphy, American stunt woman, and you don't want to miss that. Some great stuff on there, so do keep up with that on social media and spread the word, and check out the Bond films that are happening at the moment. If you haven't seen them already on the big screen, go and see them. They're doing the rounds every week. Watch my shows, of course, then go and see them, or go and see them and then watch my shows. I don't care what you do one or the other. And we'll catch up with you all again very, very soon. All the details are down below as far as contacting me on the socials, and if you want to get in touch with me in regards to the Pod Dojo network, the people who are responsible for the podcast, then do that by all means. Okay, so until next time, it's bye for now.